Hey, everyone. Hey, Jasmine, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Ready for the next top five? I mean, got to do this every month, so something new every time. That's the interesting part. Even though it's the same thing, kinda, it's always something new and interesting to cover for these participants. So I'm always looking forward to seeing what's new, what's out there, what people have tried to implement, and how they also develop the skills. That's an interesting one when you're trying to follow some of the audience, for example, that okay, this person has participated from month to month, and you see how they're growing from very basic things to already starting to use field parameters, dynamic titles, and so forth. So it's very good, it's very fun as well.
Yeah, I guess it's super great to see the development that the participants make by practicing regularly on a regular basis.
Absolutely,
And we had
absolutely.
some really great entries, so I guess will be really great.
I mean, otherwise, right, kind of hard to make a top five, it's if it's very
Mhm.
bad.
Yes, I know. I know the problem.
Hey, we've all had those struggles. Sometimes you got to make sure that, hey, we have a top five, so we somehow have to make a top five out of this. No, but it's fun. It's fun. Yeah. Hey, everyone. Hey, Federico. Sorry, yeah, not Federico. Rigoberto, I meant. For Federico, unfortunately, as you guys may have seen it in the chat or in the comments also, unfortunately, Federico is not able to make it today. So it's going to be me and Jasmine. I hope you forgive us, and I hope it's still fun. But it is what it is. Life is life, and you have to adapt, right? It is. You can't always expect everything to work out perfectly. It's just what it is. So, yeah. Before we go into the agenda and talk about what we're going to be doing today, probably some of you already noticed, right? We already talked with Jasmine, so we have a guest judge here. It's Jasmine. So, Jasmine, couple of words about yourself and what's your journey with Power BI?
So I'm Jasmin Simader. I'm a BI consultant with a focus on data governance and data health, and also on dashboarding. And my journey with Power BI is, I guess, 2 or 3 years old now at the moment. And I also started out participating in the challenges because I think it is a super great occasion to practice and to learn also from the community. And this year I started freelancing and working with companies because I want the companies to have better reports and to have a better BI that really helps the people. And I really guess that or I'm pretty sure that everyone who's participating in challenges is on a really good way because you can really learn there a lot. So thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you here. And I think most people will understand it from when it comes to that part, right? As much as we would love to make everybody's reports great, it's a difficult journey. It's not a very straightforward one.
Yes, this is why I also have a YouTube channel, what I forgot now, to share these tips and tricks. And you need to practice anyway, because anything in life you need to practice. You won't get from you starting to good with making two reports, and it's completely fine if I look back on my first reports. I just think sometimes, oh, this was a report, but I learned a lot on this journey, so it's okay.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's also
absolutely.
okay to see the development when you look back, because if you did not see that, you did something wrong. So it's completely okay to start somewhere. But
I
the
mean, you have
important
to start
thing in,
somewhere. Yeah.
yes,
And I know it's the same thing. Me and Federico have talked about this also multiple times. Like there's a certain vault locked down with our old reports that we're never going to be opening again because I don't know if you can call those reports anymore. But hey, when I started off, it was the best I could do.
yes, but you started, and this is, like you said, the most important point, because if you did not start, you were not where you are today.
Of
So
course. No. It's a cycle of repetitions. You learn something new, you try, you fail, you learn from your mistakes, you see, okay, what else I can do there. And I think, like you mentioned, right, this is one of the great things about challenges. This is an environment where you guys can learn and try out new things without the real sort of real world consequences, right? You're not impacting anyone's decisions. You're not, for example, missing a deadline. You kind of have a deadline to submit, but nothing's going to happen if you miss it. Okay, I have the next challenge when I can participate. But the main thing is the journey part, right? When you learn, where you advance your skills and you kind of prove to yourself that you're capable of doing this. I think that's the trickiest part, because a lot of people are very afraid to kind of build those reports and showcase and be like, "Yeah, okay, but everybody can make reports nowadays. Mine looks kind of meh, so I'm not even gonna bother." No, no, no. Start off with something. Everybody started with a basic report. Trust me. None of us created the first report which had everything, navigations, buttons, all of that thing. No, no. It came gradually.
The reset button, for example, the biggest trap you can have. How do I implement a reset button?
Oh yeah, and make sure it works
Uh,
properly.
yes.
Okay.
Ah,
But yeah, so for those of you who have been here before, you already know how it's going to go down. For those of you who are new, what today is all about is the top five announcement. What we're basically doing today is going to the top five submissions for this month's challenge. We're going to be going through them, and me and Jasmine are going to be giving our personal feedback, right? We're going to be talking about things that we like. We're going to talk about things that we think should have been, paid more attention to or improved in this way or another. If our opinions are different, that's completely fine, because guess what? That's what's going to happen in real world as well. As much as you would love to everybody to follow all golden rules, that's usually not the case. So it's your job as a developer to find kind of the middle ground with the customer through communication and see, okay, if we do this, we could achieve this. And you have to prove to them in one way, shape, or form what's the benefit, right? You have to break that stigma basically of why should we move away from Excel in a lot of cases. So I'm
ah.
gonna go through these things and just have fun with it. That's the main thing. And of course, if you do have any questions or anything, make sure to ask them in the chat. We're gonna try to answer all of those at the end of the webinar as well. If you don't want to send something publicly but just want to ask something privately, you can also do that by sending an email to webinars@zoomchars.com. And of course, if you're having fun with this, if you like to support us, also one little thing that I could ask for you is if you could click that repost button on the post, right? Yeah. Make sure you share it with everybody else so they can join in. And the more, the better, right? The bigger the audience, I think, the better it is for the whole community. Because then you have more reports, more different designs, more different ideas that you can look into and see, like, okay, that's something that I want to try to create or learn how to do this. So, yeah, I think we're good, right?
Yes, we're good. I think we're fine to start.
All right, let's go on with the first one. Sharing the screen, making sure it's the right one, hiding everything that's unneeded. And there we go. So the first report that has gotten itself into the top five comes from Pajita Kohli. So congratulations to you. Now let's open up the report and take a closer look at it. So for me, when I first opened up this report, it didn't feel too heavy in a way, right? I like that the elements have proper spacing, that it's still taken into account, and it feels like there's a layout of a report, not just things just mashed up around wherever it belongs to. The few things that I would probably take a little bit into account when I talked about alignment, the first thing that I noticed was the navigation. And you might think that I'm really kind of, now he's just pity and taking in little things. Though these little things matter, guys. There's always going to be somebody who notices them. So here, for example, you can see that the first and the third icon seems to be aligned in size, but this one seems a little bit bigger. And because it's a little bit bigger, it feels also like it's kind of getting on top of the name performance, right? Having those little things aligned would just make it feel more unanimous in design. But that's a very small little thing that you can easily adjust. But like I said, these small little things matter. Um, Overall, I like the color palette as well. One thing that I noticed here, I was looking at this chart and I was like, okay, the person has actually taken into account different labels and the actual coloring for the labels, right? Because you can see the total seems like to be on the right hand side and it's in black color, so you can see there's contrast to it. The one that's inside, it's in white, so again, the contrast color, we can properly see it. But the one issue I had with this is, as much as I would love to say that it's a perfect, when I hover over it, I don't have a tooltip and I don't have a legend. So I really have no idea what the 1K and 2K represents. I see there's two numbers. That's total employees by job role, but then you're thinking like, what's the difference between the 1 and 2K? So, because you know Power BI, I did the following. I just went into the focus mode. Or actually, you can even not go into the focus mode. You can show as table, and I can look at the name of the series. So I can see that part of it is active employees and the other part is exited employees. Okay, it makes sense now, but I would really appreciate some sort of a legend or a tooltip here so I understand what I'm looking at. Otherwise, these are just numbers that make you question the report. And trust me, that is the last thing you want to give to your users, right? More questions to answer. Your job is to answer those questions, not bring more questions onto the table. So that is one small little thing that I would definitely do here. As far as the rest of the visuals, they're fine on this page. But the one thing that I noticed, and this is actually, I don't know what happened with you guys, but this month you all just seem to have forgotten about it. The element order. What I mean by this, if I start to hover over, for example, a donut chart, you can see that the image is in front of the chart. And unless I interact with the canvas of the donut chart, because when I interact it, you can see it's basically being brought into front, right? It's being brought into focus. So now it's properly on top of the image. But if I haven't touched anything and I reset, for example, the chart and I've just freshly come into the report, I hover over and you can see the image is disrupting the readability of the label. So again, small little things, but do pay attention to these. Yeah, for the first page, anything from your side, Jasmine?
I like the report also very much because, as you said, I like the colors and the layout. The only thing I was not so sure about are the total stores by department because when I clicked on the stores, I had the feeling that they are also reflecting somehow the employees, but maybe this was my fault. So I did not get if this is really the store number or
Mm,
if this are the employees in the end.
yeah,
And I'm not such a big fan of pie charts. I would have used bar charts for the upper part, especially at the first chart because we have one, two, three, four, five categories. So I would have switched to bar charts. But this is very high level critic because you can of course go for the pie charts. But I usually like to go for the bar charts because then I can also read everything clear and I see immediately how the differences are. But this is really a high level critic, so I think this first page is pretty good done. And what I also would not have done is the total employees are the 7.5K at the moment, but
hmm,
there left some employees, so it must be less. I guess it's around 6,000 something, if I remember the analysis right. And I would not have given the retention. So I only would have given the complete number we have at the moment. So the 6,000, I don't know how many, and I would have given the attrition rate to get a feeling how many people are leaving. So this is
yeah.
the only thing I would have personally done otherwise.
Yeah, or basically extend this and just have in the brackets, for example, the percentage and the number of employees, so I can do a
Yes.
little bit of math, or give me some insights on that part. But yeah, like we said, right? These are some of the little bits and pieces, but this is also how it's gonna go when you present your dashboards to the customers, right? There's always gonna be the initial request, you try to fulfill it, but then there's gonna be always modifications to it, so don't worry about it. Uh,
And what I
yeah, go.
and if I have can add something, the only thing I have seen also by the filters, but you can see it also on the second page, is that they are the boxes for the filters are too small because they look so squeezed in, and if you leave a little bit more white space around them, it
Hmm.
will look much nicer. But
Yeah,
these are
especially this
only also
corner.
the
Yeah.
small, yeah. And it's also, I think, not pretty much not exactly aligned with the bottom one. So these are really the small details. I would have aligned them really with the bottom charts or made the bottom ones also bigger.
Yeah, true. One thing I remembered when you mentioned the slicers is, and this is a golden rule, guys.
Mm.
This you have to do every single time. The naming is one of them, right? If you have proper naming everywhere else, rename these properly as well. That's one thing. And the other thing is, if you have a full list of values, like where you have to scroll, make sure you enable search.
Yes, I
It's a
saw that also.
It's a very small little thing, but trust me, for example, manager ID, well, good luck.
What I also saw here is there are some blanks in it which
Yeah.
should not be in, so there must be something wrong with the data model also. As soon as you get the blanks into slices or also in charts, I saw that also in some other reports that there are blanks and you have to check your data model.
Hmm. Okay, what about performance? Performance, it felt okay. I think in this case, for example, the donut use case, it's fine. Three, four slices is it's fine, especially if they're different in sizes and varies. So that's fine. The scatter plot is okay. This one, I know it's very hard to kind of play around with these numbers. It's a very tricky to figure out what chart to use just because they're very close to each other. So on a first glance, it almost feels like there's absolutely no difference whatsoever. But the good thing is that you actually did add the label, so at least it allows the user to understand where the difference comes from. So that's a very good little note. For this one, not this one though. This one was fine. Similar case to this one. Also, top 10, unless because you're telling me it's top 10, but we can see it's definitely a little bit more than top 10. So make sure to apply visual level filters to filter out only the top 10, and that's it. There's nothing else. So that goes for that. And then the tricky part for this report was actually the outcome page. And I'll explain why. And you can tell me actually, Jasmine, if you noticed this as well. Once I came to this page, if you ever built a Power BI report and if you ever have created a drill through page, you know what this symbol means because it's automatically created as soon as you apply a drill through filter. So because of this, I knew that somewhere in this report there's a drill through. But we went through the two pages, right? And there's no indication of where it might be coming from. I found it out. It's from this chart. So you can see there is a drill through option. I can go to outcomes. I can pre-filter. But then the issue is I have no indication of where I came from or what is the filter that I have applied before I came to this. So whenever you have a drill through page, it's always a good sort of sign of goodwill in a way, right? That you show to the user what are the filters that were applied on this page. So something like a dynamic title would be excellent, I think, for this solution in this case. Because otherwise,
Yeah.
this element by itself, it also felt like a little bit out of place, right? Everything is nice and neatly within this sort of container right here, but then suddenly there's an element somewhere at the top which feels like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and you can easily do that with a selected value just to filter out the selected values
Yeah,
you are filtering from and give it just as a headline, and then you have an indication. Can we please go
absolutely.
back to the performance page also?
Sure.
Because what I was wondering in the satisfaction versus performance by job role, I was wondering why this is not a scatter plot. Because
Yeah.
I guess it would have been much more easier to find out if there's a correlation or not also if it would have been a scatter plot, because if I look at it now I have to think very much and I do also miss the data label. So this was what I had in mind when I was looking at this chart, that I
I
have
mean,
to think too much as an end user.
I can tell you straight away, Federico would be like, no scatter plots. He doesn't like scatter plots.
Okay, okay. I did not know that. Okay,
But
okay.
yeah, what I would have probably done here, and I think that would be a very good solution to kind of accommodate for multiple cases. I would actually keep this chart, move it to the bottom right, have the donut and the timeline, so these two, and these four I would actually combine into this massive area as one big scatter plot with
Yes,
two field parameters, which allow you
yes,
to define the x and the y axis. And the reason for that is because, as I mentioned, for example, these sort of charts, they don't really provide you with a lot of insight, right? They feel very redundant because everything's almost the same. So by having the ability to switch around and plot for different dimensions, it's very dynamic. That's first of all. And on the second part, it actually allows you to find some correlation, for example.
so it's pretty good that Federico is not here today, because I'm also a big fan of scatterplot with field parameters, because the user has so many possibilities to choose what he wants to see and to get more insights. And a scatterplot is immediately readable because you know immediately, especially if you split it into the quadrants, you know
Yeah,
immediately in which quadrant you are in, and you can always find four a good performing, a bad performing, and some things in transition, and you know immediately where you are. But
absolutely.
yes, if you do not like scatterplots, you do not like them. So
It is what it is, right? You can't
yes,
fight with that.
yeah. So today we are team scatterplot.
Yeah, for today we can be.
Yes,
But yeah, overall, definitely congratulations. It's a very good
yes,
report. Bits and pieces, like every other report. Trust me, same thing would apply also to my reports. There's always bits and pieces that
yes.
I can improve. It is what it is. So yeah, congratulations, and let's move on to the next one. So the next submission that has gotten itself into the top five comes from Anjali. So congratulations, Anjali. Let's open up the report and take a closer look at it. So immediately, the first thing that I noticed is the cards, and that they don't and they have some sort of comparison, but they're not showing the comparison. This is a good practice because I can tell you straight away why, right? If I would have some sort of a comparison visible here and you wouldn't tell me what I'm comparing, for example, what against what, it's pretty much useless, because then you're basically just throwing out numbers to the user and they don't know the full context. As soon as I select, for example, one of the years, the comparison is going to show up because then there's something to compare. And it tells me, hey, okay, here a little bit of, formatting options, but you can see versus last year. So it's comparing 2021 versus 2022. This is the difference. This is the variance for it, right? So very good approach in that sense, that you're not just throwing some numbers out at me and then I'm left guessing, okay, what does this mean? So very nice job on that one. However, on the timeline, one thing that I would definitely do is, and I know this because these are Zoom charts visuals, I wouldn't have removed the display period option. Not sorry, not display period, but display unit. Because as much as I like the hierarchy or time intelligence, right? I never liked the approach where you're forced to go through all the levels to get, for example, to a monthly view. So having a drop down, which would allow me to switch from years straight to months, so I can skip the quarters or just remove quarters as removing probably isn't the best option, but allowing me to just switch the unit would be very appreciated, because then I can click on a year, I drill down into it, I have quarters, and be like, you know what, I can switch it to a monthly view and play around with it a bit more. But here you're kind of forcing me to do that. So that's a very small little thing, personal preference. What else? For the visuals, the donut chart in this case, I think it's a bad example. And the reason for it is because I don't think there's sorting, or maybe it's alphabetical. As far as I'm concerned, alphabetical sorting in the donut chart is a very fine line that you can almost immediately break. And because of the reason for it is because a donut chart should always start off in a single location, and that typically is 12 o'clock, right? Straight up north, straight up top, that's where it starts off. Here you can see it kind of starts here, but then you have the smallest segment, then the biggest segment, then something in between, and then the third place. So it's very hard to read it properly. So sorting on the donut chart is very important. That goes for that. Field parameters here for different switches. I like it. But for the value labels, I think this is the case where I would say it wasn't the greatest combination, mainly because there's not enough contrast between them, and especially if you, because always remember, guys, when you're building reports and when you're playing around with colors, if you have contrast on your screen, it doesn't mean that everybody else is going to have contrast on their screen, because displays have different settings for contrast, brightness, hue, lightness, and so forth. There's different other variables that needs to be taken into account. The best option on how to check whether there's enough contrast or not, there's different tools online that you can just paste basically hex codes in and see if there's enough contrast or not. But yeah, in this case, I feel that especially because you have that little bit of a light background, it makes it even less contrasting, you know? So that's one thing that I noticed here. Um, that goes for that. What else? The navigation. That's the tricky part. I'm right here on the current page. You even highlighted it, right? Cool. I know where I am. But if I click on it, it actually, I think if you went from third to first or something like that, or if you, yeah, there we go. So if I go to back to the first page, if I click on current page, it actually takes me back to the third page. So always double check your bookmarks. Trust me, we all know bookmarks can be a nightmare. We get it.
We don't
We've all
use
been
them
there.
too much.
This is why what if you are using it, you better to be damn sure you have triple or quadruple check them to make sure that they're working properly. Because bookmarks always save a particular state, right? And if you are using bookmarks, make sure that you have the right page and all the right views there. The second thing is when you're switching between the items. So, for example, I'm not going to move my mouse. You can see it's currently on the second page. So, my expectations would be that when I go to this page, that the second page icon would still be right there, right? No element should move. But the reality is, I'm suddenly on the third page and everything gets kind of shifted towards the left side. Okay. If I click on the third page, well, now I'm back on the second page.
And I would have added also some hover state to see that I'm hovering over, just to make it bigger when I'm hovering, because in fact at the moment it's not reacting if I hover over.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So little bits and pieces, guys. Like the tooltip is a nice touch. Congratulations for that. They're telling me this is the current page, or if I hover over, I can see where I'm going, right? So that is a good one. The only thing that I would probably do with this is whenever you have multiple pages and if you have a title, just make a subtitle and tell me what's the current page. So I don't have to do this every single time and hover over the button and be looking basically, what page am I currently on? This is the current page. Cool, but what is this page?
Yes.
So little subtitle would really help. And then the one thing that I very rarely have done for customers if they specifically requested, but do not create filter panels only for one specific page and then not have them in any other pages. It becomes very confusing to the user because now he's kind of like, okay, I have a slicer panel here. There's job level, year, month, cool. So I can use this. Go to the third page. No, you cannot. You actually have this chart right now. And here you actually have the time periods. So overall, make sure the experience is unanimous, right? You know what you're looking at and you know how to navigate it. Trust me, we've all made the same mistakes, disaligned elements, some proper issues, and so forth, but just have to learn from it. When it comes to not alignment, but element order, again, this was also one of the cases. You can see right here, we have these field parameters where I can switch, all good. But as soon as I choose something on a chart, the chart container gets brought into attention, and I no longer can click on these, right? So element order, make sure that it's properly set. All right, now I look like a meanie probably, but hey, it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, but these are really the small details. And if I also can throw something
Yeah,
in,
of
which is
course.
also a detail, because the average salary by department job role chart, I would have chosen the metrics, for example, because
Hmm.
now I can drill down in the IT, but I would have found it much better if I could see also the expert levels and compare the expert levels and so on through all the different departments. So I would have went here for a metrics instead of a bar chart with a drill down.
Yeah,
And to
and
go back to the, do
yep.
you want to add something on it?
No, no. I was gonna say, anything else?
Yeah, for the layout, because I was wondering because of the spacing, because we have really the same spacing nearly everywhere, but between the small KPI cards, the spacing gets smaller, and I would have chosen the same spacing there to make it look more harmonic
Yeah,
in this five cards. So
yeah,
I would have chosen a consistent spacing across the whole dashboard. Because now it looks like they're squeezed in, but there's so much space between. They would have fit in anyway. So
absolutely. So yeah, that goes for that. What else? I think it was in a different report. Yeah, but yeah, overall, I think it's a very good report. It's very well made.
Yes.
Again, some layout things, some chart types, and personal preferences that you would probably just hear from a customer one way or another. But as far as the navigation goes, this is definitely a golden rule that you always have to follow. If you ever have any sort of page navigation, make sure that all the elements are exactly in the same position. The worst thing that you can do is there's different variations to this, right? In this case, at least they're still in the top right. They're deviating from the original position, but at least they're in the top right. We've had cases also where, for example, people build reports and then the navigation, for example, is in one page it's on the left hand side, on the next page it's suddenly at the top, and then from the top it goes to the right, and then just like but I guess that's the navigation now.
Yes. And what I could also see is the labels if we go back to the page we were at the moment, because I was wondering in multiple reports that on the axis of the scatter plots you could not see which dimension is on which axis.
Yeah, because we have two, but which is which?
Yes, and I saw that in multiple reports that people missed out to name the axis and to give the dimensions on the axis.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky. If it would have a tooltip, then we could at least, yeah, we can reference kind of, but again, you're forcing the user to hover over, get the tooltip, and only then try to understand what is what.
Yeah, and you need a user that is then can really work then with that and understands the data. So this is also not always given.
True, true.
And maybe you could have also combined the three charts we're looking at the moment also in a big one, because we have on the left again also the performance and the satisfaction, and then we go again into performance and satisfaction, but with promotion. So maybe you could have combined that also, and you would not have needed the small charts.
Yeah, you would again have a lot of room basically for one big scatter plot
Yes.
with dynamic axis and tilt parameters. I'm starting to see a trend here.
Yes,
But
there
it
are the
doesn't mean,
wrong
guys,
two
that you
people.
always have to use a scatter plot. No, it's just because
No.
in this case it just works because these
Yeah.
numbers are relatively close to each other. Having these bar charts right next to each other, they don't feel like they add a lot of value,
Yes.
right? If there would be ups and downs, sure, but in this case, if the numbers are very close to each other, you want to understand which one again then is the outlier. And a scatter plot does allow you to do that because you can basically plot all of these. Then with the thresholds, provide averages for both, and then you have your four quadrants. That's it.
Yes.
All right, let's go for the next one. So the next submission that has gotten itself into the top five comes from Arun Kumar. So congratulations. Let's open it up. And I've been talking enough. Jasmine, you want to take the first approach on this one?
Yes, I like this report very much because it has a clean layout, but I'm also getting older, and the main problem I had is the color contrast, because the light gray is a great color usually, but it doesn't work on the white. And if we go, let's say, to Adobe Color Checker or to Colors.io, you will immediately find out that the contrast is too low.
Hmm.
So it's pretty hard to see. But I could also see in the KPI cards is the variance, because there's written always the head count and the numbers and then the variance. I would have named it not variance. I would have made very much clear what I'm looking at. Means, like, let's say I do not even know what we are 2024. So let's say 2023 versus 2024. Um, yes. I like very much the performance rating trend that I can see it, but what I would not have done is I would not have chosen for the previous year a color. I would have went back to a gray to make it clear immediately that it has been the last year.
Hmm.
And what I did also not like so much was in the bottom that the legend is more or less not so far away from the chart. So if I look at the legend,
This
it
one, yeah.
is, yeah, there is too less space to the chart, and I would have included it. Otherwise, what I like to do often is I like to include it in the headline. So I just color the words in the headline and make
Yeah.
clear the blue is the benefit or the benefit, yes, and the green is the bonus. Then you do not need a legend, so you have included it already in the headline. What I really liked was the performance and rating trend and the third dimension, the age groups with the colors. This is pretty well done. But it's a scatterplot, we like that. So,
Yeah.
I also like the filter on top because here I can clearly filter in also the department, which I missed in some reports that they could not filter in the department and find that out so fast. I also did not see any blanks, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
The one
yes.
thing that I really liked about this is that it didn't have any overlapping dimensions, you know? Even the filters and the visuals, they're still covering different dimensions. So it kind of allows me to have that slice and dice ability. For the previous year, I totally agree. I would make it gray. And there's one primary reason why even I would do that. If I reset everything, you have almost the same green color also for
Yes.
variance, which means a good thing. But then the previous year, so I'm guessing that we did worse last year is a good thing, right? So color has a meaning. Be very careful with it. Having it gray
Yeah,
just means
not
it's neutral.
not only that, it is also the variance, it is also the bonus again then.
Yeah, yeah.
So this was also something I saw that the consistency of the colors is not given in the report.
Because the one thing that for the variance, I know why you did it because you felt like you didn't have enough space. Similar to how, for example, we had it in this report, right, where you showed what is being compared against what. If I select, for example, just to kind of refresh your memory, if I select this matter 2018, it at least once it decides to calculate, it's the end of the day for this guy. So it tells me versus last year. So at least it gives me a reference. Whereas here, I get that it's 2024 versus 23, maybe, but I can tell you from my experience that unless you have some sort of a dynamic title or something that explicitly highlights this, people tend not to notice pre selected values
Mm,
because they feel that this is something that they could change on the fly, right? So they, oh, look at, okay, there's some filters, but they don't see that something has already been pre selected. So it's a very tricky part to kind of figure out, okay, what's the best approach. But it is a good thing that you have at least pre-selected it. And because of how the charts are built, I like that you went with the single selection approach. So we cannot break the chart and certainly, for example, start to compare multiple years on a single timeline, right? So that's a very nice little touch as well. These health checks, I would probably just, what I would do, I would probably just have all the cards here and then leave this to the visual part to kind of have blocks, navigation, then you have your cards, your KPIs sort of block, and then you have your visuals block. But that's again personal preference. If we go to the second page, um, the one
ah,
thing here that threw me off a bit was the font sizing. So there's one font sizing
mm,
seems like property used here. These ones are bigger. Then this is something in between these two. Um, the map itself, a small oversight, I think, because of the aggregation that has been selected on the value. But you can see, for example, this cluster is, if use your magnifying glass, because we're not getting younger, 129K almost. But if I zoom in, suddenly it's 130K, and then it's 140K. Like we're getting
mm.
closer, we're splitting values, but I'm getting higher numbers. So I'm guessing this is like using maybe an average or max or I don't know which aggregation it's using right now, but it doesn't feel like it's sum. But again, it's a small oversight. You probably could have been even because of testing, you just forgot to switch it to the proper one. It happens sometimes. But yeah, otherwise, I think it's a good one. Um, the navigation itself, I'm not a fan of double navigation. So once we went to advanced analytics, you have organizational insight and employee insight, right? Which feels like this page even feels a little bit rushed because things are not aligned and everything. But you're kind of forcing the user to move away from what you already
Mm.
kind of explained to them, that there is actually something secondary. I used to have filters here. Now this is a switch of a page that I moved to, it kind of gives mixed feelings, at least to me. But I think it's very powerful. I like the idea of it, like it's an organizational overview, and this is an insight on particular store or employees or whatever I want to focus on. Right. So that approach is okay. Um, Back to overview, and regarding the elements, again, annual and productivity index, all good. Choose something in the chart. Chart gets brought into front. Now I suddenly lose buttons because the chart is being brought in front of it. If I move away from it, you can see out of focus. The buttons are still there, but because of the order of elements, it gets hidden. And this issue, why it happens, I can tell you even straight away why it happens. Because you only looked at the report on Power BI Desktop. Remember, Power BI Desktop is a developer's tool, right? It shows you all the elements, positions, selections, and everything. One thing that we highly recommend every single time is whenever you get the published web link, if you cannot publish it yourselves, if you get the published link afterwards, play around with it. See if everything is working as you expected it to work. Because as much as I would love to say that always it's going to be one-on-one copy, I think Jasmine can agree with me. Sometimes things get shifted a bit between services and the desktop file. So you have to make sure it works exactly the same on both instances. And it's
And
doing
you
what you were
will
expecting. Yeah, go ahead.
and you will also have always some surprises if you open it up somewhere else and click through. I don't know why, but you see things you did not see before, so it's always a good thing to click through again in the service.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's
And
why
what I could
also, yeah, go ahead.
no, and what I also wanted to add again, because we are back to my favorites, the pie charts or the donut charts. The categories in this case are too much for the pie chart or the donut chart, in my
In
opinion.
this
So
case,
I
yeah, in this case, it breaks every single rule. There's too many categories, plus they're all almost exactly the same.
and you get in a lot of colors you do not need in the report because they have no meaning in the end. They're just needed because out of the and it's good. Yeah, I'm just not a fan of the donuts and the pie charts. I think I use them 3 times a year or something like that.
Hey, but see, you can still run away from them because customers sometimes really want them.
Yeah, I know, but they need so much space as you can see also here because the donut is not so big, but the labels need so much space
Yeah,
then, and you do not get much information out of them. So yeah, maybe we need to educate also the customers. But I know that they cling to their pie charts like it was real pie. So
oh yeah, it's too sweet, to miss out on it.
yes, so not so easy.
No, no, it's a
And what
it's a
I
yeah. Go
And
ahead.
what I also cannot see I was wondering first why there is a waterfall chart for the target missed or hit. And it's
Hmm.
nice somehow because I can see if the target is hit or not. But what I cannot see is how far away I'm from the target. And this is what I'm missing a little bit because I only know that I'm 67 or 671K above. But how much is this? Is it much? Is it less? And I would have preferred to see it also in the breakdown for each month to see compared with actual sales. So I would not have went there for a waterfall chart. I would have chosen a bar chart with a target line or a target and stick closer to IBCS because here I don't know if it is much above or under the target.
Yeah, and one other small thing is ordering. Q2, Q1 start with
Yes.
chronological order because I know why this is happening. Because by default, waterfalls basically sort by the biggest increase going to the biggest decrease,
Mm.
and then a total at the end. But in this case, you have to force a different sorting mechanism to be used. You need to make sense of your data. But yeah, overall, I think it's a very good report. There's very few little things that you can improve upon. Overall, very good job. All right, let's move on to the next one. So the next report that has gotten itself into the top five comes from Nina Ikve. So Nina, congratulations. Let's open up the report and take a closer look at it. So for this one, um, I've had the same color patterns before, and I'll say it again. To me, it feels like it doesn't really work all together, and I'll tell you why. The black and the gray feels like and the whole theme of the report feels like you're going towards a monochrome report, but then suddenly you add one color, which if you typically add, you would use that to highlight something, right? Use it as an accent color. But here it's used throughout in different use cases. I don't think that's a very good approach. If you do use like a highlight color, reserve it specifically for those, insights or whatever you want to kind of bring your attention to. Other than that, the one thing that I would always double check, and this is a must, guys, the cross chart filtering. What I mean by this is, if I, for example, have a head count, I'm expecting this head count to be dynamic, meaning that if I select the head counts by the job level, for example, entry, where there's 4,000 people, I select it. Some of the charts get updated, but not the cards. So the cards feel like they're completely disconnected. But then again, if I choose a year, I think, yeah, you can see again, everything else updates besides the cards. The cards almost never should be static. You can still have those values, for example, as a reference somewhere at the bottom, like what's the total, for example, but the main KPI should reflect the current selections. What's the current view that I'm seeing? So that's one thing that I noticed in this one. The second one was active and active. I would probably, instead of clustering these, I would stack them in a zero based approach where I have columns like within columns just to save space on horizontal axis and have more room for the labels. Because right now you can see the labels kind of scale together with the column, and because it's so narrow, it feels like you need a magnifying glass again to just see the number.
Yeah, and in general, the font sizes on these reports are very, very tricky because
Uh,
they get so small, and I could not really read them. And if it comes to font sizes, there are also some rules you can apply. I also divide usually the bigger font size by 1.6 or something like that to get the smaller one, but this, in my opinion, is definitely too small. I really had troubles reading it. Or maybe I'm too old, I don't know. But
we're not getting younger. But I agree. For certain cases,
and
like
what are
KPI cards feels okay, but like subtitles and everything else feels like I have to get closer to the screen, like okay, then fall back and try to analyze again.
and what I missed also a little bit is the departments because there were age groups and there were also years, but I could not go back to the department. And yeah, I think first before I want to see the age groups, I wanted to see the departments above and not below. I can drill down in the department somehow I saw, but I don't know if I want to see it that way. I think I want to see it the other way around because if I look at the department, I also want to find out if I have many old people there and if I have to replace someone. So I think the other way around would have been more helpful.
Or make a field parameter and allow the user to define the order.
Yeah.
I know it seems like we're trying to add more elements, but that is one of the things that's going to happen in your reports as well. Because when you build the initial draft, right, from what the customer requested, that's usually okay. But then the real questions start. Oh, can we do this? Can we add this? Can we also look at this? And then you're trying to figure out, okay, how am I supposed to do all of that now in what I already have here? So field parameters, sometimes bookmarks, is something that allows you to kind of play around with the available space to just try different approaches and see what works for the user. This actually report was also one of those where I want to reiterate how important it is to double check all your bookmarks, because if I click reset on the first page, it actually takes me to the second page. It's a very small little oversight, probably could be one of the last things that you did. You're just trying to update the bookmarks, but then accidentally updated the wrong one. It happens. This is why you check all of those things. And if you don't trust yourself by checking all these things, give it to somebody else. Just give it to them and say, "Hey, try to play around with the report, see if you can break it, see if everything makes sense." Because one of the trickiest things you guys have to remember is that when you're developing a report, you know the ins and outs. You know what you're expecting as a result of that action. A typical user doesn't necessarily know it straight away. They're going to be experimenting. They're going to be clicking on things, trying out different things, and seeing what's happening, basically, right? To kind of understand what's going on there. So they're going to be clicking on random things. Trust me. They know ways on how to break reports. It doesn't matter who made the report. They're going to find a way.
I can only agree on that because I was also playing in the Power BI World Championship this year, and I was so sure that the report works and that there is no way to break it. I gave it to a colleague. She needed 3 clicks, and the report was broken because you cannot imagine what the user will
Yeah,
click together. So I can just agree on your statement. Give it to someone who has never seen it before and let them click. It will be broken
it's
in
also
many
very
times.
good. It's also a very good approach if you have like a specific audience. Like let's say you're building in, like in this case, right? We're building an HR report. We have been given instructions on what to build, right? So we're building it based on instructions. But when you give it back to the actual users, or you kind of go into their mindset, one of the things that usually uncovered is the pattern of stories that they're trying to kind of explore. Because they know what they're looking for. They just know how to
Yeah.
get there, but they know what they want to find. So taking all that feedback into account is a great way on how you can always enhance your reports. Because for me, for example, okay, clicking this and that makes sense. For an HR person, no, 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 no. I want to start with this first, then goes that, and then we go back to that. So there is order on how they're doing things as well. It's very important to communicate.
But
But
this
yeah,
would be the reason why we should do prototyping before or talk to them
oh
before,
yeah,
because you will get into hell when you start building and ask later because you will have to rework, in the worst case, your whole report. And like you said before, then you will have to change the whole logic of the report in the end.
yeah. And I can tell you one thing, right? We all love this sort of idea that things are going to be simple. It's never as simple. The more questions they ask, trust me, the better it's going to be for you. Because in a lot of cases, when customer comes to you, they know they want a report. They have a general idea of what they want to have, but they don't know the specifics. This is your job to prove to them or give them guidance on, okay, we should use this, we should do this, we should do this by that, right? And then you kind of play around with different ideas and ask as many questions as possible.
And the asking is also important because I often experienced that I felt stupid when sitting next to them and asking question over question because I thought I must have understood it right now. But in the
Oh
end,
yeah.
you can't ask enough. There is no reason to feel stupid because you're not familiar with what they need. You are not the end user, so you don't have to feel bad by asking too many questions. You just need to ask because you can't talk too much to the end users.
Yeah. Always think about it in reverse in your mind, right? They should have come prepared and just give everything to me. That would be ideal, but it's usually not. So, yeah, communicate, ask questions, and figure out everything how it should be. In some cases, it's always also good to make different variations to showcase to them and see, okay, I have 3 different variations. Which one will we go with before I actually implement it into the live report, right? Just ideas, bits and pieces. For this one,
Maybe
for
we
business, and yeah, go ahead.
can we go back to the performance shortly?
Sure.
Because I only have one remark to the layout because there are the four KPI cards and then there comes the scatter plot and the donut chart and we are breaking the line from the layout we had before, which I would not
Yeah,
have done.
because based on space, you wouldn't be saving much. Make the donut chart a little bit bigger, align it with the top row, and have the scatter plot
And the space is also not consistent in the KPI cards when we are going really to details at the moment. So also this
here and
should
here.
be
Yeah.
Yeah, this should be consistent. But this is a high level critique, so yes.
For this one, it was the map visual that caught my attention. And the reason for it is since you're using a shape map, you have to be very cautious about one thing. If you have all your data in a singular shape and everything else is kind of obsolete, I can break the report just like that. Click a country that's not in the data set, and then suddenly everything is going to break once it decides to actually cross filter. Or actually, was it disabled? I'm sure I broke it before.
Click one or two times more.
That must have been my imagination. But yeah, for then okay, it works. But yeah, for USA, I would probably just split it down into states because it feels obsolete to have US if you only have US data. It is already coming just from that country. So have shapes that allow me to kind of cross filter a bit more. The pluses and minuses in a way that increase or decrease, I would probably just keep them all black to be honest, because I feel like you're going into three different dimensions, right? You're trying to implement sort of a monochrome color palette with some accent colors, but then you bring in two new colors just for this, which again, you are already creating a distinguished version with the brackets. So the numbers in brackets are going to be minus. The ones without the brackets are going to be positive. So that's one thing.
And the color in the KPI card, in my opinion, is also not that helpful. It looks nice from a design point of view, but on the one side the sails are the gray, and then the other side it's the waist. So there is no communication consistent to the colors here. So you could have also left the colors out, and I think the report would also have looked very nice with the black color scheme and, like you said, the accents in the pink.
Hmm.
So there is also no additional use of these colors in some cases.
True. But yeah, overall, it's a good report. There are just few things to focus on and reconstruct maybe a bit to make it a little bit more readable. Because right now it feels to me like you need to have a lot of prior knowledge to properly use this to feel like at home, right? All right. So I know we're running out of time, but the next submission and the last submission that has gotten into the top five comes from Sai Krishnan. So congratulations for this one, Jasmine. You want to be the first one?
Yes, I like this report very much because I like the storytelling in it very much. But I guess on the second page or on the third page, I was able to break the report, I guess,
Second page, yeah.
with the reset of the filters.
The clear, yeah.
Yeah, with the clear on one page, I was able to break the report, which was not that good.
Let's try selecting something.
And what I also did not like so much, I get the idea with the filter pane here, but I can set filters in the filter pane and I can set filters in the charts. And this was very confusing for me because as soon as I was clicking on the chart, there was shown I have a filter, but I could not see this filter in the filter pane because in the filter pane I did not select it. So I had to open up everything to find that out. And I did not really like that approach so much because for me it was confusing.
Hmm.
But overall, I really like the report because you can switch to the field parameters. You can use these field parameters. And I'm personally am a big fan of storytelling, so I really like the storytelling approach in the report that I always get a little bit of text and context what we're talking about.
Hmm. No, I agree. I think in this, for example, if we're going to small little things, I would probably move the timeline up, make it a little bit smaller so
Mm.
it's aligned with the four cards, and then have more space for the inside for the chart. So I would move them around a bit. But again, that's going into small little details. The one thing that I liked about this is that it also, when it went to the KPI cards, you have your main KPI, and then you kind of have an explanation of that KPI with the numbers and percentages. The only thing I would change here is consistency. For example, highest average salary, we don't have a dollar sign. If it's a currency, typically you should have some sort of a currency, but you have a thousand separator. However, here you don't have a thousand separator. These are small little bits and pieces, but they do matter overall, right? Because the reason why the thousand separators exist is readability, to make sure that it's a lot easier for the user to quickly understand the numbers, right? So
Yeah,
that's
but
one
what is
small.
also
Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
but what is also strange is that the thousand separators one times a comma and one times a dot. This could be also
Yeah, yeah.
solved through the how they call it, through the format settings for the regions. I often use them then in the cards to go with the DE, how is it called, DED or DEN
Hmm.
format in the formatting.
True. Yeah, because here we have, for example, yeah, and also like one decimal number, two decimal numbers. It's just small little bits and pieces, guys, right? But it does matter. For the filter panel, I totally agree. I love the idea about it that first of all, if I have selected something, it shows me that something has been pre-filtered, but I would love to know what exactly have I pre-filtered. Because if it's something that I highlight, for example, let's say if I select a year and there's no drill down, fine, I can see it. But if it's a drill down, I have a new chart that doesn't tell me what I did previously. So now if I open up the filter panel, I have to kind of go basically through every slicer to see,
Mm.
okay, what have I pre-filtered? So what I would have done here is one of the two options, or actually kind of combine both of them. Either have a dynamic title right here across the whole chart, just tell me what has been selected. Alternatively, if you open a filter panel, have like a little side panel right here, which right next to each of one of these tells me if something has been pre-filtered. If those are the same dimensions, if nothing is filtered, say none. So no applied filters, no applied filters. But suddenly, for example, year, I go to year, it says, okay, 2016 has been selected or something, highlight these little things. Because otherwise, it's like Jasmine said, right? If I go, for example, like this, right, I have drill down here. I see that there's one filter, but I don't know what it is. And trust me, for new users to Power BI, they even struggle with the concept of drill down. Right. So now that you're telling them that there's a filter, they're getting a little bit panicked in a sense. Like, what do I do now? Because if I have applied a filter through this drill down, I can't even reset it through the slicers because it hasn't been applied through the slicers. So now I'm kind of, sorry for the expression, but now I'm kind of screwed because I don't know how to get back to what I was.
Yeah, but I also was confused, and I'm not the beginner user, so I had troubles to find out what I did wrong in this case. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. But I like the fact that field parameters being used allow you to kind of
yes,
save space and just to switch to different metrics. That's a good approach. Sorting is one tricky part, I know, but make sure that sorting is always in the same principle. Or actually, was it? Excellent career growth. If I switch.
but what I really like is
Yeah,
that it
okay.
is telling a story somehow.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. It does feel like a storytelling report in that
yes,
sense. You have a starting position and then you kind of go through different analysis. So overall, definitely a very good report, just bits and pieces. All right, so we have gone through the top five. Now it's time to quickly hide my screen, find the right report, and announce the winner, right? So the winner for this month's challenge is pushing it live. Not yet. There we go. Arun Kumar. So congratulations to you for, in our opinion, overall being the best report.
Oh,
The rest of the reports are actually kind of close. It wasn't like a massive gap between them. There are a couple of runner-ups that were very close to it. So yeah, kudos to everyone who participated. Special congratulations to the top five. And one thing I want to remind all of you, the fact that you, for example, didn't get into the top five doesn't mean that your report was awful or bad, right? No, it doesn't mean that. It just means that there were five reports that were slightly or a little bit better than yours, and that's it. The main idea about participating in the challenges is, first of all, advancing your skill set. That's one. And when you get a little bit better to it, it's also a good way to build your own portfolio, right? Because in order to get a report developer job, trust me, one of the things that you will have to do one way, shape, or form is build a report. And it's a lot easier if you have something to already showcase for it.
yes, so congratulations also from my side. And yes, you're right. And what I can also add to the challenge participation, you will get challenged by a lot of other factors if you go into a company like the data model, the data, the business users. So the more routine you have in building out your report, the better for you because you can stay calm on doing this work and you have so many other challenges. So just use the opportunity to take part into the challenges, get some feedback and get better because you will have enough other struggles when you start working in the organizations, I guess.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So,
But yeah, I also wanted to take a moment and say special thanks to Jasmine for joining us today. I hope it was actually fun and interesting for you as well to be on the other
yes,
side of this.
thanks for having me anyway. It was really much fun to see what people did and to look at all the entries. So, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for everyone who attended, I hope it was interesting and insightful, that you managed to learn something new and interesting from today. If not, then we probably should change something in the format. But about that, don't forget that there is a feedback form. So if you fill in that feedback form, it allows us to understand what you like about these sessions, what you dislike about them, what you think we should improve in the future. Because without you, there's really no reason to make the sessions, right? And if you're not telling us anything, it feels like we're doing okay, but in the silence, you're sitting like, oh, I wish they really would change this. Well, tell us that. Otherwise, how are we supposed to know what you feel?
Like in real life, if you don't
Yep,
tell,
yep,
people
pretty
won't
much.
know.
I would love to read your minds, but it's kind of impossible. But
It's
yeah,
pretty good. You can't all the time.
oh yeah, probably even better.
So, yeah, yeah. So,
So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I hope you have an amazing rest of the day, and I'll see you in the next workshop or the next challenge. Bye, everyone.